Watch the nonprofits and join the hosts in the live chat, Sundays at 3 p.m. Central between The Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Talk Heathen. I am your host today, Objectively Dan, and joining me is one of my favorite people in the world, the uncopyable, the great and wonderful Gayle Jordan is joining us today. Gayle, welcome to Talk Heathen.
Thank you. What a joy and a delight to be here.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you are here. And Gayle, it's been a minute since you and I have caught up personally, but I'm just so excited that we're doing this together. Gayle, you are the executive director over at the Recovering from Religion organization. Do you want to tell people a little bit about what that is and what it is you do?
Oh, gosh, don't ask me that question anytime. You got to give me a heads up because I'll talk about it all day. The easiest way to describe what we are and what we do at Recovering from Religion is to share with you our mission statement, and that is we provide hope, healing, and support for folks who are struggling with issues of doubt and non-belief. It's that straightforward. It's that simple. We've been in existence about 12 years. We have a 24-hour hotline, telephone hotline, a 24-hour internet chat. We have city-to-city support groups. We have an active and thriving online community. We have we began in 2019. We missed 2020 because of COVID, but in 2019, we started what we call the Fall Excursion. Mm-hmm. And I know Dan well enough to know that he has been on at least one church retreat. And what the Fall Excursion is, it's all of the good stuff of those weekend getaways and none of the crap. So it's all of the bonfires and the chatting and the talking together, putting away the screens. It's up in the mountains of North Carolina. It's in September. It's about 100 folks who gather. It's a religion recovery weekend, but it's so much more than that. It's awesome and it's fun and no kumbaya.
Yeah. So if you ever hear some of us hosts talk about recovering from religion or, suggest that you guys go check it out, Gayle is the person running that. Okay. Gayle's the one, and Gayle's who we have in mind when we're talking about her. I'm going to introduce, of course, this show in a second. But before I do, I really want to tell a brief story about why I love Gayle Jordan so much. And it's because Gayle has personally impacted me in ways that, that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. So it was a couple of years ago. I was at a Secular Student Alliance conference, and Gayle was there at that conference. And this was my second time going to any atheist conference. It was actually the second time meeting you as well, because we had met at a different conference earlier that year. And I did not tell my parents that I went on this excursion. This was in Columbus, Ohio. I'm from Texas. Okay. This was coming from Waco, Texas. And I told them I went on a trip with some friends. And while I was there at that trip and I was supposed to give a talk on street epistemology, my parents found everything. They found out not only I've been hiding this whole atheist stuff, but also that I've been online talking about this stuff for a while. And Gayle can tell you I was absolutely devastated. It was just a really, really hard day for me. And in a couple hours, I had to go on and give this talk about how great this street epistemology stuff was. So I was just not in the mood for it. And Gayle comes over to me and tells me that she wants to write a letter to my parents talking about how I am just a good person and that they shouldn't be worried about me and where I'm going, that I've been doing really good things. And honestly, I was thinking about reading the letter today, but I don't want to cry while on the air. So I'll leave that to just you and me, Gayle, but it's probably one of the nicest things another human being has ever done for me. And I'll never forget that, Gayle. And that just speaks to the kind of character Gayle has. She's a wonderful, wonderful person. And I'm personally a big fan of recovering from religion, and I always appreciate all the stuff that you do, Gayle. So thank you so much for.
Well, I'm so glad you shared that story. And the thing I wanted to let your parents know, and your parents did a good job bringing you up. It doesn't mean that they did a bad job, that you have chosen or that you have come to a different conclusion than they have about what they believe. Anyway, yes, that was a moving weekend for all of us, and I appreciate you letting me jump right into your personal business on the spot.
You just have that personality, Gayle. I don't know what it is. I think everybody wants to kind of tell you their personal problems, right? And you can just kind of solve it for them. But anyway, I don't know if that's what you want for yourself. But we'll talk to you guys today. This is Talk Heathen. This is a live call-in show. So let me tell you a little bit about that. Talk Heathen is a product of the ACA, which is a 501c organization dedicated to the promotion of positive atheism and separation of religion and government. So there's a couple different ways you can support Talk Heathen today. You can become a member, and you can do that by clicking the join button below the video. And you can also support us on Patreon. So that's patreon.com/Talk Heathen to me. And we now have a channel that houses all the shows that the ACA has on audio podcast form. And you can look at that by going to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. And you can also become a member of the Talk Heathen community in our fan run Facebook page. And our fan run Facebook page is at facebook.com/groups/Talk Heathen FG. So if you want to continue the discussion of the show, usually you can join us in the ACD. It's our fan run Discord server, and that's tiny.cc/ACA Discord. We're not going to do an after show today, but in general, we're always there talking to people. So you should check that out. And you should also check out the newest version of the ACA show, The Nonprofits. That's going to air right after this show at 3 p.m. Central Time today. That's youtube.com/The Nonprofits ACA. So that is all the intro announcements I've got out of the way. Gayle, we've got a couple people in the chat here. I'm talking about the call queue. This is a call-in show, folks. You should definitely come call us and talk to us. So, Gayle, are you ready to talk to some people?
Can you hear me, Dan?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Sweet.
me?
Yes, I can hear you, and I'm ready.
Okay. I'm getting some issues about some technical stuff. If the crew wants to tell me to stop doing calls, I'll do that. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and take some calls here. So we got a couple different people who want to talk to us. We've got, let's see. I think this is a good one to start with. And oh man, we got a couple different ones, but I want to talk to Matt first. Matt, who's calling in, who wants to talk to us about Christian nationalism. Matt, you are live on Talk Heathen. What's up?
Hey, Gayle and Dan, glad to talk to you guys. So I want to do a quick shout out to a Truth Wanted episode that kind of relates to this, that you did during Theist Month, which I thoroughly enjoyed with, I think her name is Jo Luhmann.
Jo Luhmann. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a great month. Yeah, very controversial, but I personally enjoyed it. I'm really glad that we got to do something like that. So yeah, what about that month you want to talk about?
So I think a lot of people will probably be familiar with Christian nationalism, particularly here in the U.S. But I think it's important to kind of highlight the relationships of other religious nationalist movements around the world, and the ways that they sort of interconnect, because even if it's a different religious nationalism, their interests kind of align, I think, because if one country is allowed to have sort of sort of religious dominance, then I think it makes it easier for another one to say, okay, well, we can do that here.
Yeah, I agree. It's the reason why, of course, we talk about Christian nationalism so much on this program is because a lot of us were ex-Christians, and also we're in the United States. So as far as religious nationalist movements go that most immediately concern, most of the hosts on this show, we're talking, except for Shannon Q, who's in Canada, and some other folks, right? We're talking mostly about Christian nationalism because that's the biggest threat. And yeah, you're totally right. Any kind of religious nationalist movement has a threat to the harm of individual people based on rules that just aren't justified in the same way you or I might justify things, right? If we're talking about issues of abortion, for example, okay, someone argue that those rules are there because they want to keep some sort of religious idea in government that we don't have the same values on, or we're talking about gay marriage, for example. There are people who still think that marriage is only defined as a link between a man and a woman, even though historically, that's not always been the case. And so like these are just religious rules that secular people just don't vibe with, because the logic behind the implementations of these rules just don't apply to us and they don't make sense. So from a secular humanist point of view, we definitely want to stop all kinds of religious nationalism. And I know Gayle, Gayle, you know a thing or two about politics.
A little bit.
Maybe you should talk about that a little bit.
Matt, your point about it makes it easier for other countries to do that. Yes and no, because it allows other countries to see what happens when you have a Christian national or a religious nationalist movement. You can look at Saudi Arabia. You can look at countries that are a theocracy. And while, yes, it might make it easier for some folks to say, well, hey, they did it and they're thriving. What about, why don't we do that here? They're not always thriving. It's not always good news. In fact, it's almost always the opposite. It's almost always bad news. And we can learn and observe and see from that. Do you understand that point?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. One thing that I really liked about that episode with Joe is the fact that she was a theist, and I think it's important that, atheists like ourselves or non-religious and, religious people who aren't like fundamentalist nationalists, I think those alliances are really important.
I think so too. And that's part of the reason why I did the Theist Month on Truth Wanted, was because I wanted to show like, hey, there are a lot of Christian voices out there who are fighting against Christian nationalism, who are fighting for a lot of the same kinds of things we're fighting for. And yes, at the end of the day, ultimately, there's a lot of things that I'm not going to agree with on them and that we are not going to see eye to eye on. But the fact of the matter is, atheists in this country are a minority. Okay. And if we are going to make any sort of change in this country on a broad scale in voting, we have to talk with people who are going to feel a little bit differently on us, but still value some of the same stuff that we value on really, really important issues. Okay. Like, look, everybody in this country is not going to stop being Christian in the next 10 years. So that's not going to happen. But we can still make policy changes happen that affect everybody in this country. So I'd rather talk with a progressive Christian who wants to make those same kinds of policy changes than I do, than rather say, well, I can't even talk to this person because they are going to church every Sunday and they have a specific way of doing things. Obviously, Christianity, I think, is problematic as a religious system overall. But I'm just dealing with the reality of, hey, I live in a broadly Christian nation right now with a lot of that Christian ideals still baked into the culture, even to secular people. There's a lot of people who have religious ideas and religious ways of thinking, even if they are secular. So it's just kind of there. I wish it wasn't, but yeah, I'd rather try to do what I can. But anyway, Gayle, I don't know if you feel the same way when it comes to progressive Christianity.
Yes, and multiple things can be true at the same time. We can both push back and be willing to help those folks who are struggling with issues of doubt and non-relief, and ally with the folks that share our same political objectives, and we can do both of those things at the same time. So good point, Matt. Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, and I agree.
If we talk to every single I want to just real quick too. If we pretend like when we talk to every single Christian and they believe the exact same thing that every other Christian does, then we are doing ourselves a disservice, because we're not representing other people correctly and in the best light. And also, they're not going to listen to us if we think that we're going to stereotype every single person we talk to either. I think this is a problem I see with other atheists who talk about Christianity as if every single Christian is a fundamentalist who believes that the earth was 6,000 years old and that gay people should go to hell. Like, that's just not the reality of every single Christian that exists. So we have to take account for those nuances as well when we're having those kinds of conversations. But anyway, Matt, continue.
No, I was just going to say, to Gayle's previous point, I definitely agree that, we can definitely see a lot of the failings that come about in these religious nationalist countries. But also at the same time, and I think what I was kind of more getting at was the the alliances between sort of like Christian nationalism here and, Hindu nationalism in India,
Yep.
or Jewish nationalism in Israel. These movements, they endorse one another. And a lot of times they'll support each other financially and things of that nature. And, our mission of separating of religion and government, I think it's very important to keep an eye on those sort of developments.
Yeah. I hear you, Matt. Well, thanks for calling in about that. Really appreciate you bringing up the topic. It is important to talk about this Christian nationalism stuff and just religious nationalist movements in general around the world, right? Again, I think it's a great point to say that Christian nationalism isn't the only kind of religious nationalism out there. I've seen a lot of, I'm not an expert on it, but the articles I have seen about what Hindu nationalists are doing and stuff in India are kind of crazy, and how a lot of, specifically the Indian government, how they've changed their science curriculum to match a lot of the religious beliefs in the same way that the United States has a lot of our science curriculum being, politically sort of stopgapped by Christians. It happens everywhere, and we should definitely be against that, no matter where you live, right? Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and go to another caller here. Let's talk to. Oh, this is really relevant. I want to talk to Danny, who's calling in from California. Danny, you want to talk about the problems with religion and mental health?
I sure do. How you guys doing?
Doing great, Danny. What's up?
So, I just wanted to do a real quick background. So I grew up in a fundamentalist Christian household. Yeah, that was fun. But anyway, I have ADHD, and I hadn't known that until this year. I'm 31 years old. And due to the fact that when I was in the religion for a very long time, that it was always a spiritual battle. It was always, hey, you just need to pray about it, blah, blah, blah. And it went into this, essentially, you can fix this through God, instead of, I didn't get any help through psychiatrists or anything until just this past year. And so it was insane depression bouts, absolutely out of this world, just the worst. And so I've found that I'm not the only one who deals with this so much, essentially not just your mental issue in its own, but the guilt that comes along with the religion itself. And so it can be overwhelming, and to the extent that if it wasn't for a lot of the help that I've gotten through the past year or so, I may or may not be here anymore, And so it kind of hurts me when I see other people essentially saying, oh yeah, just pray about it, or, oh yeah, go to church. And it's like, there are some good things about going to a group of people that agree with you. But not in the sense of, a lot of them don't really have a good understanding of how mental health works.
Right. Absolutely. Gayle, you know a lot about this particular issue, just because it's literally what recovering from religion does as an organization. So I think you should speak to this first.
Danny, thank you for sharing your story. I'm sorry that you have struggled with that, and it breaks my heart to say that you are not alone in that. We have folks that call and chat in every day to recovering from religion with similar issues of, we're human beings and life happens, and we have occasional times when we need help, whether that's medical intervention or whether that's therapy, whatever it is. And religion has done such an insidiously, profoundly good job of subverting our ability to address some of those things, because the theology is, if it's your fault, you're broken and it's your fault. And so first, good on you for seeking out the help that you need, and good on you for being willing to share about it, and the humility it takes to call in and say, I've had this problem for a long time and I'm just now addressing it, and I'm sorry it took all of those years that you had to struggle with that. And the chat
Oh,
line and the
definitely.
helpline at Recovering from Religion is peer support. And so we don't make, we can't do any kind of therapy or anything like that. After you chat in or you talk in to one of our agents who will sort of talk you through how you're feeling and maybe help you identify what you see as options, then you can join our online community where you can talk to people that are on a similar journey. And there are so many folks who have had to deal with and address mental health issues. You will find yourself in good company. And then in addition to that, this is just one more plug for Recovering from Religion. We have what's called the Secular Therapy Project, which allows our professional team to vet therapists to apply for our program to ensure they provide only evidence-based only evidence-based therapies.
Yeah.
And then they're in our database. And then when a client reaches out and they tell what their needs are, we can connect those two. Now that is professional therapy. And of course, that's a relationship with that therapist that you would develop. But the helpline and the chat line is peer support. So if you ever want to call in, it's 84-I-DOUBT-IT is the phone number. And the internet chat's found at recoveringfromreligion.org. We'd love to have you join in with us.
Yeah, for sure. Danny, I think
Awesome.
like
I just want to say one last thing. Not just with therapy and things like that, but I've found very often, at least within the groups of people that I know of my old religion, is they're very anti-medication. And that is huge. Just huge.
Yep.
And the difference between now and not even a year and a half ago, where I was in a very dark place, is out of this world. Like I can't even suggest to explain how much better my life is just by going to therapy, just by taking the meds that are required for the way my brain works. And so it really hurts me when people are like, they're so against this stuff, when it's like, no, we need to obviously use what we have, the tools that we have been built upon through science for a very long time to help us, and so anyway, I just mainly wanted to bring it up because I thought it was, at least if anything, maybe someone will at least hear about it and think about the subject a little bit.
Yeah,
Wonderful
no, Danny.
Call, Danny. Wonderful.
It's super important. It's super, super important. You brought up an interesting. There's a couple different perspectives you find in Christian fundamentalism when it comes to mental health. One of them is the one that you're talking about, which is this idea that these kinds of problems we can categorize in the pray away category, which is if we just pray about it enough, it's going to go away. And they're not using evidence-based methods to kind of figure out, how to best deal with those situations, or figure out where the cause of that might be, by the way, which part of it might be the religion they're part of. But, that's a whole other thing. Yeah. But there's another perspective to this too, Danny. Another perspective to this too is that some churches don't even acknowledge that mental health problems exist. They literally say that it's not even a real thing. And I guess if you live in a world where demons can possess people and cause people to do crazy things, then maybe you don't think that mental health is a real phenomenon. But the truth is, it is. And people have been talking about it for a little while now. And there are better ways to deal with it than just sitting in a circle and, holding hands together and saying, let's try to make this go away. Like a lot of it is chemical imbalance. A lot of it is a change in environment. A lot of it is stuff that we're still trying to figure out every day. But I do know this, it's not going to come from the Bible. The Bible's been around for long enough. I think it should be able to tell us what the solutions are to mental health. And I don't think it has. I don't think it has so far. So, I'm glad you're bringing light to this issue, Danny, because it makes me upset too, especially those kinds of churches that talk about saying, you shouldn't take your medication or you shouldn't worry about these things because, you're safe. You shouldn't have to take the vaccine because you're saved by the blood of Jesus. These kinds of people are really making it hard for everybody to live their best lives. So
just you saying that makes me cringe so much. Even saying something that someone else I've heard say just makes me cringe. But, hey, thanks a lot. Don't want to take up your time, but I appreciate at least talking about this issue for a minute with me.
Yes. Thank you, Danny. Thanks for calling in. And I wish you well on your journey, my friend. It's definitely a good thing, in my opinion, that our culture as a whole is being more open to talking about mental health issues, because this has been a hush hush thing for many, many decades. And even just on this show, just talking about it, I hope it inspires other people to reach out if they need help, especially in this past year. I think we've all needed help in one way or another just to get by. So thanks, Danny, for calling in about that. Let's talk to, this is another one that's kind of really related, and then we'll get to some other kinds of stuff here. But I'm curious to know this too. So I want to talk to Margaret, who's calling in from Colorado. Margaret, you're live on Talk Heathen. What's up?
Hello.
Hello. How's it going?
I know if it's going pretty good.
Good.
Today, Colorado can't see the mountains from my house, and they're not even 5 miles away.
Oh,
Just saying.
well, that's fun.
Smoke.
That's fun.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, do you want me to ask my question?
Yeah, go for it. What would you like us to answer here?
I want to know if freedom from religion helps with things like, I was thought to be the spawn of Satan when I was born. And so I've been affected by that. I have PTSD and DID from it. And I didn't know if freedom from religion kind of would address that, or if that's just too weird.
I'm going to jump right in. Let me just make one little clarification, Margaret. Thank you for your call. Freedom from Religion Foundation is another nonprofit, and I know all you're doing is saying the wrong words. Ours is Recovering from Religion. It's a bunch of R's and a bunch of F's, and it's easy to get mixed up. You wouldn't be the first person to do that.
I have made that mistake before too, and so
I wasn't going to bring that up. So, yes, no, what you're experiencing, and I can see little Margaret being a child, being a normal child, and being told in a fundamentalist Christian environment, and I'm making some assumptions, and I could be wrong, that you are evil and that Satan is influencing you. And it breaks my heart to think about you as a child hearing that feedback. And my answer to your question, it is absolutely not unusual for us to take those kinds of calls and chats and conversations. It's so ubiquitous in this religion that's how we deal with things that are normal human parts. It's just the nature of what religion does and how it works. So we would love to talk with you. We'd love for you to share your story with one of our agents about what that must have felt like, both as a child and as it surfaces now as an adult. That's what the chat line is for. That's what the hotline, the telephone line is for. And our trained agents are waiting for those calls and chats for 24 hours. So we would love to talk to you. But Margaret, my most important takeaway here, my important point is, that wasn't true. You're not a bad person, and Satan wasn't causing you to do those bad things. You were a kid, and you were doing kid things, and it might have been exacerbated by the very narrow pathway that was expected of you. That's the one thing religion does. It just confines what's acceptable behavior. And so let me celebrate with you that it sounds like you're out from underneath that, and I hope that you are. And in the event that you still need to talk it through, we would love to have you come join us on the chat or the hotline. So
this would be the Recovering from Religion hotline?
That's right. And the chat, the internet chat, is at recoveringfromreligion.org. There's a little green chat bubble on every page of our website. You can just start up a chat. You can be completely anonymous, or you can do a phone call. And that number is 84-I-doubt-IT. I don't even have that number memorized to know what the actual numbers are, because I just throw it around all the time. 84-I-doubt-IT. We would love to either talk with you or chat with you, and then have you join our online community if you still want to have a little bit more support than that. That is not out of line for you to be able to reach out to us and have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because like I said, I haven't actually met another person with my history, so I wasn't sure if it was common enough to take it. So I appreciate it.
Unfortunately, it is common enough, and there are a lot of folks that have, and there are even folks, Margaret, that have been, that have they've done the heavy lifting of discarding the religious beliefs, but they still have some damage that raises its ugly head from time to time in our lives, things that you think you've discarded, things that you think you've dealt with, and you've done all of the work, and you've gotten to this place, and something will pop up out of the blue, unbidden, from nowhere. And so this is a good,
Okay.
safe place for you to come and talk about it.
Yeah, because now that I'm older, I thought I dealt with it, and I thought my issues were from the pedophile who lived next door. But no,
Yikes.
they're from. Now that my older people in my life are talking about religion, I just go into a panic inside, and I didn't realize I was so easily triggered.
It's
So,
part of it,
anyway,
Margaret.
this sounds
That's part of it, especially when the damage occurs when you're a young child. So no, that is not
right.
that unusual, and we would love to talk to you about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much. I hope both of you have a good day. And I didn't say properly hello, and I hope you're doing okay, but I still am. And take care.
Good.
Thank you,
Margaret. Margaret. Thank you for calling in. Yeah, we're plugging recovering from religion a lot today, but that's great because again, I love what you guys do, and it's important. And in this intersection of mental health and religion it's a taboo subject for a lot of people. I think it's obvious to a lot of people that religion can be harmful for people. I mean, there's obviously always stories about cults and what that does for people, but like what broad mainstream Christianity can do to people it is just a conversation that's really just happening now. I've noticed, in a lot of current news media, and there's always going to be conversation of, okay, what's the right kinds of religion? What's the wrong kinds of religions? I think that's where that conversation usually goes. Whereas we're kind of more on the spectrum of like, well, maybe none of this is a good idea, right? Like therapy is not a Christian institution, like it doesn't have to be in any meaningful sense. So I don't know. It's makes me happy that we're talking about more, but also frustrating that people don't come to the same conclusions I always do on this scale.
Right, and I agree with you that there is a progressive version of this, and that's awesome, and that's better than the fundamentalist version. But even the progressive view of it, I think about it. We're so inured to it because we've been so overexposed to it. But think about the image, even in progressive Christianity, the image of Jesus on the cross, the crucifixion. And if you're 4 and 5 and 6 years old, that is it's so violent and so horrifying and nightmare inducing that we've learned that this is part of it. Yeah, Jesus was crucified on the cross, say whatever. But for a child processing that and the message underlying that, it is your fault that this happened.
Yes.
And that Jesus suffered this pain for you. That's destructive, and that does cause long-term damage to a child.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was definitely the theology I was taught growing up, this idea that, well, we were born broken and we have to go to Jesus in order to be saved. There's no other way. There is no other way to be a good person. You can do good things, but ultimately you are a sinful being and your sins will not be forgiven until you've surrendered yourself to Jesus Christ. And like that narrative, there's a spectrum of how like violent that imagery is, right? For some people, it's just like, oh, you just say that you're ask for forgiveness and you're good. And the other one is, no, you need to do it for every single time you have a lustful thought. You need to do it for every single time you've told a lie, or every single time you've done, little things in your life that normal people do, or people can't control sometimes. And
as early as Vacation Bible School, the summer camp for children that is in churches, all of the imagery, all of the songs, it's all about the blood. There was a song I remember, the I in the middle of SIN is me. It's all and it's introduced at such a young age that it's and we forget the impact that has on people's long-term lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And people try to focus too on, well, it's all about Jesus' love for you. It's about, this is a story of love and redemption, not the focus isn't on sin, but like when you're a kid, you fixate on the sin part. Cause like when you're still trying to figure out the rules on what to do and what not to do, like that's like the most important, right? And when you're told, if you died today, you could go to hell and burn for eternity unless you do this thing and you don't know any better. That's the scariest thing imaginable, right?
Of course it is. Of course it is. And that's not incidental to the religion. Those kinds of images in the minds of a child.
Yeah, it's awful. It's
Horrifying.
awful.
Mhm.
And in some cases, I think you could argue it's child abuse, but
Right.
there's a lot of opinions we could both have on this. But we should get to some other callers here, I think.
Sure.
I want to talk to David, who is calling in from California. David is a theist and wants to talk to us how the space / the cosmos is sustaining itself as evidence for God. What's up, David?
Hey, how you doing, Dan Agoria?
It's good.
Just
It's
wanted to say
Gayle,
Jesus.
actually, but yes, we're doing good.
Oh, Gayle. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
I just wanted to say I love Jesus, and I think we should all take personal responsibility for our actions and not try to blame religion or our parents or anybody else. It just seems
David,
like not a-
whoa. Let's stop you right there. No, we are not saying nobody should take personal responsibility for our actions. Is not what we're saying. What we're saying is a child who's 10 years old should not be held to the same standards of an eternal punishment or of an afterlife that an adult should, right? Like they're definitely the punishment does not fit the crime here. That's the difference. Okay. Nobody here is saying that we shouldn't take personal responsibility for our actions or that we shouldn't try to be better people. But there is a difference in how we distribute justice compared from a secular point of view compared to a Christian one. Definitely different there. So let's not make mischaracterizations.
No, I know. I just noticed the caller was trying to blame her parents and the pedophile next door. She's taking the lowest common denominator instead of saying, "Hey, I got problems." You know what I mean? So
hey,
anyways,
people get problems from other people, David. I don't know what you're saying. I don't know if you know how trauma works, but trauma can be a lifelong debilitating thing that other people can be the cause of. And yes, does it take personal growth and personal work to work through that? Absolutely. But to say that other people cause trauma is accurate is that's totally accurate.
Yeah, but it's not religion's fault, and you can't blame your parents and the government or anybody else. We just
I strongly disagree. Actually, if you weren't religious, you wouldn't be telling people that they're going to hell after they die. So, I as a secular person, I have absolutely no reason to tell people that, and no reason to tell people that they're sinful and that they need redemption. So, yeah, I would actually blame religion on that. So, you're totally wrong.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any problem telling you if you jump off a cliff, you're going to die when you land on the bottom either.
Right. So that's just a natural fact of reality that people can observe. I've never observed anybody go to hell. Never seen it.
Yeah,
and if you can provide evidence of that, David, that's great. But otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, you're telling people a lie.
It's not a lie though, but they do go to hell.
Is it? Is it? How do you know that? How do you know that, David? How do you know people go to hell?
Well, I know for a fact because I got some evidence for you for God, because I know Jesus is real.
Okay, but Jesus could be real and hell couldn't be real, right? So how do you know people go to hell after they die? What is your evidence for that?
Because it's called justice.
Okay, that's not evidence. You just said that's called justice.
Wait a minute.
It's not evidence. I'm asking for evidence of how do you, David, I'm asking for evidence of how you know people go to hell after they die.
Well, the Bible is the evidence. Jesus is the evidence.
So the Bible is the evidence. Okay? The Bible is the evidence. So because the Bible says, let's walk it through here, David. So because the Bible says that people go to hell after they die, we should automatically believe it's true because the Bible says so.
Well, I would much rather you believe that Jesus is trying to save you from hell because Jesus is good.
That's great, but that's not what I'm asking. So what you're saying, David, is that because the Bible says that we go to hell after we die because we are not saved, we should believe it is true. Because the Bible says it.
I'm telling you that it's highly conspicuous that the Bible is true in all of its morality and all of its history and everything it says.
Can a book be true about some things? David, can a book be true about some things but not other things?
Can a book be true about everything?
I don't know if a book can be true about everything, but that's not what I'm asking. Can a book be true about some things and not other things?
Well, not the Bible.
Why not?
It could be true 100% of the time.
Why not the Bible?
Because it happens to be true. Some things are just
why? How do you know? How do you know that the Bible is 100% true? How do you know that?
Because I told you it's history. Okay.
Is it?
It's the most accurate history. It's the most accurate history known to mankind. There is no history more accurate than the Bible.
So you believe there were giants that were walking the earth and that there were talking snakes? That's all part of the history?
Look, Dan,
or is that metaphor?
The serpent was not, he was a person that cast spells. Do you understand? He was not a snake.
Okay, so, but you do believe in casting spells. That's a historical fact.
Yes.
Okay,
well,
awesome.
Islam has that entity as their God, Allah.
Yeah, I'm not a Muslim, so I don't know why you're telling me that.
I'm just telling you that there's plenty of scientific evidence, and Islam is scientific evidence that Lucifer in Isaiah 14 is called Allah. That's his name in the book. Wait, Allah means to ascend. That's
because Islam says that they call him Allah. That's scientific evidence. Is that what you define as scientific evidence?
Are you denying Islamic history?
I am denying that it's scientific evidence. Yes.
No, it's history. Islam is history, okay? And the word Allah comes out of the Bible in chapter 14 of Isaiah, who describes Lucifer. He says, I will ascend and become like the Most High. That word for ascend is Allah.
That's great. We're going on a tangent here. I really want to know, you believe the Bible is the most accurate book in history, right? Because of the truth that it tells. It's the most accurate book. Okay, so how did you come to that conclusion? Because I don't have that conclusion. I know for a fact Gayle does not come to that conclusion. So how could you convince us to come to that conclusion?
Well, it's not my job to convince you. You would have to go through what
it's not. Is it not the job of a Christian to convert everyone on earth to become a Christian? Is that not the calling? Is that not what God called his disciples to do?
No. Because the Bible says whosoever will.
Right, but how can I unless I'm convinced, right? How does somebody come to the conclusion of Jesus unless they even heard about it, unless they're even talking to somebody about it? I mean, nobody knew that Jesus was God according to the Bible until Jesus actually talked to them, right? So like there has to be some form of communication there.
Well, I have to tell you that everybody's level of evidence is different, Dan, because
I agree.
I've called and talked to you before a couple times, but the thing is that I became a Christian at the tender age of 18. I didn't know anything. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was enough evidence for me at the time. That was sufficient. And you know what? That same evidence would be enough for me today. And I'm 58 years old. That was 40 years ago.
Okay.
So obviously the evidence is sufficient, but
the evidence is sufficient for 18-year-old you and current you. That's what you're telling me. The evidence is not sufficient for me. It's not sufficient for Gayle, and it's not sufficient for anybody else that does volunteer work for the atheist community of Austin. So you're right. Listen, David, there are over 1 billion Muslims on this earth, David. 1 billion Muslims on this earth. I am convinced that 1 billion Muslims are wrong. I am happy to say that all day. And I'm also willing to say that there are over 1 billion Christians are wrong. The fact that you personally are convinced of this truth means absolutely nothing to me. What I want to know is what evidence made you come to that conclusion? Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
I told you I became a Christian at 18. That the sufficient evidence was that God had interaction with me, okay? And I heard about Jesus. That was enough at the time. And that's still enough because God interacted with me. That's still enough for me. But you claim that scientific evidence is the only thing that you will accept.
Not the only thing, but listen, if let's say that I said that I heard the God of the Aztec faith, or one of the gods of the Aztec faith spoke with me, and that convinced me of the truth of the Aztec faith, would I be sufficient in my evidence there? Should that be enough to convince me? Because I heard a voice? Because I had a personal experience?
I didn't say that. No, I didn't say to throw out reason. I just said.
Okay, but why does that matter? Why do you get to throw out reason? Why do you get to
didn't-
have that exception? Well, you said that that's what convinced you.
I
Is there
didn't
something
throw
else that
it.
convinced you?
I said I had an interaction with God, and I'm an honest person. So, I mean, I had a need for Jesus, okay? Jesus did what he said he was going to do, okay? That's all that's important to me. So he forgave me of my sins, and he proved to me that he was real, and that's all that I need, okay? That's sufficient for me. And I haven't learned anything since those 40 years, Dan, that could even contravene any of that, okay?
David, can I be honest with you then? I am afraid you have not looked and searched hard enough. I'm sorry, but if for 40 years, I'm sorry. There is a lot of scholarship that talks about the history of the Bible and its numerous inaccuracies towards actual historical events. Absolutely.
I'm not interested in the atheist community's opinion about the Bible.
And that's why you will continue to believe the things that you'll believe and never change your mind, because you're not open to talking to other people.
For 40 years.
That's great. Apparently you haven't studied it enough, because there's a lot of this to say. If you say that you studied religion and you are coming at me saying that the Bible is the most accurate book of all of human history, then you have not studied history enough. You have not studied religion enough.
Yes,
sorry.
History proves the Bible. History proves that Islam existed. All of those gods and religions existed. They all have historical basis for existing. I don't deny that. You're denying everything. Atheism is the most ignorant position because it denies all of history, all of science, and all of philosophy. You can't get any worse than that.
David,
I've been talking a long time here. I want you to talk because I'm taking up this whole conversation.
My question is this. I heard what you said about the Bible and your faith in it, and I heard about what you said about your transformative experience. You've also said that all these 40 years, you've continued to be open to it. Can you tell me your second favorite book about history?
My second favorite book about history?
Uh-huh.
Well, I don't know. That would be American history.
What book?
What book? Just American history, because American history is supported by Christianity. Well,
David, you're a repeat caller. I've heard you call in before, and
Go ahead, Gayle.
All of Christianity.
I'm a mute David here. Go ahead.
What I was saying was, I've heard you call in before, and I heard you say today for the first time that you don't feel compelled to win others to Christ. What most fundamentalist Christianity professes to teach us as believers is that we're to win others to Christ. But what I heard you say to Dan today was that you didn't feel like that was your job. So that was news to me. So my question is, why are you calling?
Good point.
What does it say on your paper? Or what does it say on the thing?
What paper? What are you talking about?
What was the title? What is beside my name where it says I called to talk about something? What does it say there? It says
you called. Yeah, but what? But Gayle's point is, if your job isn't to convince us, then why are you calling us?
I didn't say I would. I didn't say I'm giving you evidence. I'm giving you scientific evidence, which is
right. Why are you giving us evidence? Are you trying to convince us that evidence leads us to a conclusion that we should believe? Yeah. If so, then that's a hypocrisy to the point that you made, where you said that your job as a Christian isn't to convince us. So either your job is trying to convince us or not.
No.
So which is it?
My job is not to force you.
That's not what you said earlier. No, that is not what you said earlier, David.
No.
Because David, this is a recorded show. Are you really going to talk to me right now and said that's not what you said earlier?
I said it's not my problem to force you to become a Christian. I'm not.
That's not what you said.
Force you. No, you said,
David, that's not what you said. I'm sorry. I'm about to let this call go, David, because I'm giving you one more chance here, because I am not interested in talking to people who aren't even going to be honest about the same phone call that we're having here, something you said 10 minutes ago. Okay, so we'll keep talking for a little longer, but this is it. You got to work with this here. Okay, so you think that...
Why would I call in if I'm not giving evidence?
Oh my God, David. You said that...
give you evidence.
Okay, but I thought it wasn't your job to convince us. Is it your job to convince us or not?
It's my job to preach the truth. Yes, it's not my job to make you cause you or force you to make a decision for Christ.
Okay, but isn't giving us evidence giving us a reason for making a decision? So isn't that in some way causing us to change your mind?
Yeah, I'm trying to reason with you.
Okay, so you are trying to convince us.
Well, I'm not just trying to talk to you. I'm trying to talk to everybody because, yeah, it's my job to tell people about Jesus 24 hours a day. That's my job.
Okay.
I have to tell people about Jesus.
So your job is to convince us.
That I do that.
So your job is to convince us, David.
Yeah, well, to try to give you a reason to accept Jesus, but I know you both already believed in Jesus, so I'm not expecting a miracle.
Why not?
Well,
you're the one that believes in miracles, right? Why not?
Miracles. I know God, because God is not going to contravene, or he's not going to contradict your free will. Okay, he's not going to force you.
Okay,
but,
well,
I mean, you're not the only ones listening to me today.
I understand that, and I totally get. Yeah, you want to speak to more than just the person you're talking to on the phone. But David, I think that's all the time I want to spend talking with you today, because if you're gonna flip flop on this and say yes, it is your job to convince us, but no, it's not your job, but yes, it is your job, I don't understand. I get it. Like, look, the reason why Gayle and I are on shows like this is because we want to convince people of our ideas. Again, we're not forcing people in the sense like we're not making policy decisions that actively affect people's lives if they don't agree with us. Okay, right? I think that's what most people say when they say forcing. But yeah, of course, like we wouldn't be talking unless we thought that we didn't have anything to say, right? That's okay. I don't mind that. But to say that, and then to go on to say that God can't intervene or you shouldn't expect him to intervene, yet he intervened in your life, David, like that's part of your experience. I don't understand. I don't understand. It seems like we're talking out of both ends here, but I went ahead and let you go, David. Sorry, Gayle, do you have any other thoughts on that call?
That was a lot to deal with.
That was a lot. David has called in before.
Yeah.
And now I don't know what his MO is. I don't know if he's trying to convince me or what.
I don't know if he's being even honest with himself.
Yeah, I'd say that's true. Anyway, David, if you have, I don't know, if you want to talk to us about real evidence, I know you said you want to call in about evidence. We didn't even get to that because we went on a whole other tangent there. But I'm glad we did.
Expanding universe thing. He's called in before. It's all about that. That's his. That's his
sustainability of the universe somehow indicates God's existence, but I don't know. But anyway, before we get to some other callers here, we've got a promo that we want to show you guys, and I love doing these new weekly promos we're doing. So check it out.
You're like a sex archaeologist.
I'm turning into a historian.
You're like the Indiana Jones of the sex worker industry.
I think some people have a sustainable amount of Dan, and I'm a limited resource.
I need more Dan in my life.
The tenets are a little vaguer than the commandments. Doesn't mention my neighbor's ass in the tenets, which is always on my mind.
I know. I'm reading the Atheist's Handbook to the Old Testament right now. I'm not listening to the audiobook that Seth did because I don't need to be like aroused while listening to this book, you know? Yeah.
I'm probably not going to tell you off, Matt. I do want to give you some critical feedback.
You can, and I don't mind.
Fine.
I did it. It was fun.
And those are some of our great promos. Shout outs to the crew for making those promos and choosing that line for me about sustainable Dan resources. It's great. I love it. You guys are awesome. But yes, definitely check out some of our other awesome shows, including Truth Wanted live on Friday nights and all the other awesome shows that we do here at the ACA. But for now, let's get to some more callers here. I want to talk to Jesus Loves You, who's calling in from the UK. Jesus Loves You is a theist and wants to tell us that Christianity is not a religion. So if Christianity is not a religion, then what is it? And if you say it's a relationship, I might scream.
Okay, so I guess I would say something more than a relationship. I wouldn't say it's a religion, because when God first created man, and he didn't say, he didn't create him. In fact, when God was planning to create man, he said, let us create man, and so that we can share the beautiful creation that he had made, and so that may fellowship with him. So he wanted to fellowship with man. And so he didn't say, let me create man so that they do this in order to get approval from me. And the whole story about the Bible, if you listen to a YouTube channel called it's Cross-Examined, it's Frank Turek. He's explaining how the whole Bible is kind of about redemption, how the story is centered around redemption, and the fact that we have to receive Jesus Christ is because redemption was lost in the first place. And
so let's talk about this. So God's intentions doesn't actually matter for what the definition of religion is, right? The fact that God intended to do something, I mean, there are other religions that don't worship the God of Christianity, and we still call those religions. So whatever God's intention was for his relationship with mankind, that doesn't exclude Christianity from being a religion in that sense. But the term religion can be very broadly defined, and even in academic circles, there is debate as to what qualifies and what doesn't. So I'm less concerned with those technicalities on the details. I'm more concerned with, can we broadly define Christianity as a system of belief, as a religion? And I would say, yes, if you believe in a God and you worship that God, I mean, that's a religion. That's what religion is to me at the end of the day, at least. There's this idea that Christianity has some sort of exceptionalism to it, and you see this in Islam, you see this in other religions too, because they want to avoid the sort of pitfalls that come with using the term religion, and I fully disagree with that. I fully discard that. How can you have the most amount of churches on earth, the most amount of worship services, so the most amount of people trying to convert others to what? A relationship? I mean, that's just playing with words at that point. It's a religion. I would say get over it and try to, deal with that. But it's a religion. You cannot convince me that it's not. I wouldn't even know what it means to say Christianity isn't a religion. So.
Okay. My point. Thank you for that, and thank you for explaining. But from what you said, my point would be to say, I could say it is the truth. So Christianity. Okay,
but it can be a truth, but not, and also a religion. I mean, you can be both. You can do both. Porque no los dos.
Please, all right. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Yeah. May I please further say, if you say Christianity is a religion, it can't be a religion because, again, thank you for explaining that previous point. But compared to all other religions, you have to do something. So for some religions, you have to do something in order to get into heaven. For some religions, you have to do something in order to be in a better position in the next life. But for Christianity, some may argue and say that you have to receive Jesus Christ in order for you to enter into heaven, which they can say is part of religion. But please, let me explain. My explanation is that since the whole story is about redemption, meaning that it's not you have to do something from scratch zero, it's you restoring yourself. It's just like
is restoring myself doing something?
No, just to accept. It's a decision.
Okay, making a decision is doing something, right?
I'm not sure, but I could say.
Hey, whoa, wait, let me do this. Hey, Jesus loves you. Let me do this. Can I go to heaven right now? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, no, I can't go to heaven, right? I can't go to heaven. So in order for me to go to heaven, I have to what? I have to do something. Okay, so you do have to do something in order to go to heaven. So your point is invalid. I don't know what to tell you.
No, okay. All right, thank you. Thank you for explaining that. But may I please explain this? So the fact that you yourself, I just want to explain this to whoever is listening to this, but you, including the person who's listening, the lady, you guys, me as well, and all the other people, our natural state, when God created us, he said, let me create people in my own image. And he said, let me create them to share this earth. And our default position is not who we are now, but is with God in heaven.
Okay, that doesn't. None of this. This is theology. No, I don't want to listen, because what does this have to do with whether or not? What does this have to do with whether or not it counts as a religion?
Please let me explain. Okay, thank you. Please let me explain that last point. Thank you for the question. Let me explain. What I'm trying to say is that because what Christianity is telling us is that our natural state is not who we are now. We are not. When we were created, we're not created to. How can I say it? Okay, when we were created, we were supposed to be right with him, and so because obviously the first person failed and it affects us all, we need to get back to that default position, which is with God, which is
yes.
God, like
you've explained this.
Heaven, where we belong. Because hell wasn't created. Hell isn't for human beings, because human beings were created in God's image, and it's like God chose human beings of all things to be made in his own image, and so the default position for people, for human beings, is not in hell. And so when you accept Jesus Christ, it's not like you are trying to get somewhere, but you're just getting back to where you are defaultly made to be. That's what I'm trying to say. But thank you for letting me explain.
I hear what you're saying. Okay, so it's motivation that matters, is what it sounds like to you. Is the difference?
No.
Okay, then I don't know your point. I'm sorry. I've heard you repeat your theology.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't get that.
No, let me get this through. Because I've heard you repeat your theology. Okay, mankind is ultimately sinful. Hell is not made for human beings. We are meant to be in a one-on-one relationship with God, and Christianity is the act of restoring that relationship with God. Right? Okay, I get that. That doesn't mean it's not a religion. It's still a religion. Okay, that does not give you any special exemption from the rule that it isn't a religion, because it is a religion.
Okay, all right. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
But it's not a religion, because for all the other people, they are doing something in order to get somewhere. So they're doing something.
And I have to do something to get somewhere. We've already established this. If I don't accept Jesus Christ into my heart and I die tonight, where am I going? I'm not going to heaven. So in order for me to restore that relationship, I have to do something.
All right, but your default position, you're not supposed to be in hell, but you're supposed
Why does that matter? That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Because it's just like yourself. You've gone to work, and then you've left home, or let's just say you've left home, right, and you've gone to work, and you had a good day. You were working.
Okay, we are losing you here. Jesus loves you. We are losing you here. I'm gonna have to drop the call because we're getting some issues. But I feel like I've made my point pretty clear, right, Gayle? Like,
yeah, my question is, and I think we've let the caller go, but it might be something for the caller to reflect on: is what's the burr under your proverbial saddle about it being a religion? It's a religion.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. Don't fight that so hard. Get on with the next thing. Okay,
right.
Is it also a relationship? Fine. Is it also default? Fine. Move on. But the fight over whether or not it's a religion is silly and wastes everybody's time.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's always going to be, again, these semantic debates on what qualifies or what doesn't. But if his definition is you have to do something to get somewhere, which I would not say is a good definition of religion, because there are religions where action isn't required to go to afterlife destinations. then his qualification still fails, because you have to do something to go somewhere in Christianity.
Restoring to the default is doing something.
Yeah.
Even if we accept the premise, whatever, something, you're not supposed to be in hell, whatever. Even restoring requires action. It requires doing something. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's I think we've drilled our point into the ground here. So we should give a shout out to this week's patrons before we move on to our next callers here. Every week on Talk Heathen, we give a shout out to the top 5 patrons who donate to the show. And this week's patrons are: number 1, Eric Tweet; number 2, CJ Dennis; number 3, Dingleberry Jackson; number 4, Balaam's Donkey; and number 5, Paul Leah. Thank you guys so much for donating on that Patreon. Once again, it's patreon.com/talkheathen. You guys are really, really awesome. And thanks to everybody who donates to the Talk Heathen Patreon. And with that, honorary mention. I'm so sorry. Honorary mention, the Great North American Dingaloo. Can't forget that honorary mention. Cannot forget that honorary mention. So thank you, everybody that donates on the Patreon. You guys rock. Let's go to let's go to this caller here. We have is it Ahmad calling us from Ohio? Ahmad, what's up?
Yes, sir.
What's up?
How you doing, sir?
Doing good.
I have a question, and I am searching the truth to get to a good definition about what a designer is. How we can call there is a designer for this thing, and how we can say there is no designer for that. What is the rule? And this is very important in the discussion between the atheist and the believer like me. I'm a Muslim.
Yes.
And I just want to note something before I go forward than that, because the previous caller, I heard you saying that even the Muslims said that Islam is not a religion. No, the Quran stated it is a religion.
Yeah.
Clear and obvious.
I have heard people. And let me be clear, Ahmad. When I say there are Muslims that say that, I am of course not speaking of all Muslims, and there are a lot of Christians that say, yeah, Christianity is a religion. There's some that say that there aren't. There is a diversity of opinion within beliefs, for sure. So if that's how you define it, and that's you, I mean, I would agree with you, right? Islam is a religion. I would think most people would agree with that. So I have no qualms with you there. And I would also say that I want to say this. Thank you for asking this question about a designer, because this is really, really critical. This is a really, really important question. How do we know the difference between something being designed and something not being designed, right? So the point that I always go to when we have this conversation is when we're talking about something. Yeah, go ahead.
If you allow me for 1 second, and I am here trying to tell you something about what I believe in and what is about Islam.
Okay.
Islam have a reference.
Yeah.
And it's not a matter of the opinion of the Muslim with all their difference in opinion between one Muslim and another. Islam have a reference. It has a textbook, which is the Quran. It's only one book, and we have copies since 1400 years ago. It did not change. So what's good in it is good, is Islam. What's bad in it in Islam, no matter what, we got to be very clear about that. So
I see your point, Ahmad, but I would also say there are non-Quranist Muslims. So, there are even people who would call them, and maybe you wouldn't call them Muslims, right? But that's a difference of opinion within the Muslim community. I'm pointing out as a secular person that there are people who call themselves Muslims who don't follow the Quran, in that same way. So just clarifying that there.
Follow, but
yeah,
they don't have to follow. But if I cannot say Christianity is anything different than what's in the Bible.
I agree with you there. Actually,
all the Bible.
To me, it is incoherent to call yourself a Christian and have nothing to do with the Bible. I agree with you there. So we would find some agreement. But
and for me as a Muslim, the same way. I take it all good and bad since I believe in it.
Yeah.
So let's go to the designer question, because I am trying to reach to a definition for that.
Yes, let's talk about this. Okay, so when we're talking about design, we are usually contrasting it in nature. Otherwise, in what we find in natural circumstances to happen versus what happens when And historically, it's always been human beings or other sentient beings who are capable of making things like beavers making dams, things like that. Organisms creating is how we look at that versus what happens in nature. Okay, we look at nature and we contrast that. We look at the trees and the grounds and the sky, and we contrast that with the houses and cities and cars that we build, and it's through that contrast that we in general find that something is designed. Okay, the problem with creationists talking about everything being designed is that there's nothing you can contrast it to. If you say that everything is designed, then how do you know what's not designed? Because if literally everything in nature is designed, then what isn't it designed? There's some young earth creationists that say, well, it's the things that are a part of sin, that sin nature, like disease and things like that, are not designed. But that just raises even more questions, because I don't know what causes what, there seems to be naturally occurring organisms that cause disease. And there seems to be things we can replicate in a lab. And there are even some people that say we can design the virus that's going on right now, let alone, other kinds of things. So this definition of designed and designer gets really, really tricky, really, really fast. But I always go out to this point that if you're saying that everything is designed, then you have nothing to contrast that with. You have no coherent way of pointing out what's designed and what's not designed. If you're saying that everything is designed, you have no point of reference there. So I can't accept that everything is designed without knowing a point of reference outside of that. I don't know if your reasoning differs from me, Gayle. Maybe you have some other insight, but that's how I typically think of these questions.
I think that's reasonable. Ahmad, what do you think about that definition?
Okay. Can I give you my idea about how I can reach to, and I cannot claim that what I'm going to say is a final definition to how I can differentiate between something is designed and something is not. Okay. But if we took a pile of iron and steel, and we put it in a room, and after a year or two, and we come in and it's rusted, I cannot call this a design, because this is happened by oxidation, which we can say it happened automatically by the power of nature of things like this. But if I come after a day or two and I found this metal is shaped in a different thing that there is no explanation for it, so I can call this a design.
Right, because we typically we don't have a known. Sorry to interrupt you, Ahmad, but the reason why I would say that I would call it design is because there is no known natural force that occurs that can make that happen. There's no natural circumstances by which that product would be an output of, based on what we know about the natural world. So that's how I would come to that conclusion, right? So there is a difference there.
Yes, yeah, I agree with you, because when the iron got rusted, I know this is no design here, and when it was made in a different tools and stuff, I know there is a designer for that. It has to be, because this cannot be by the law by all the physical law that we know.
Yes,
we cannot. There has to be some power interfered and to do that, right?
We could come to a reasonable conclusion that yes, that some sort of intervention was happening that is beyond natural, what we tend to find in nature. Yes, but if I'll point this out right here. If you're going down the route that human beings or other living beings aren't a result of nature, I disagree with you there. I would totally disagree with you there. But I'm not sure if that's the route you're going down.
That's. Yeah, no. I am really trying to have because when we agree to a definition, when we agree to a rule, we can search this issue, because this is the main issue that separates a believer from an atheist. If you believe now, if I convince you to that now, that there is a design for the trees, for the plants, for everything, then you will be a believer. And if you convince me otherwise, I will be an atheist. If I am truthfully or in true looking for the truth, not just arguing for the sake of a religion or anything. So, but when I see, hello.
Yeah, no, I'm contemplating if I agree with that. I mean, I think that would convince me that act of creation happened, but not necessarily a god. I mean, you could still point to other things. You could still say it's aliens. You could still say it's forces beyond what we would traditionally call a god. I don't know if I'd immediately become a religious person if that's the case.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I agree with you on that, because I don't believe, I'm not a Muslim because I know there is a creation. I'm a Muslim for other reasson behind that. But this is the first step in believing. This is the first step in believing.
It's a step.
It's the first step in believing, yes. It's a step. Yeah, I agree with you. But I look for things, if we have a soil and a water and an organic material shaped in a different form, which we call it seed, and we plant it, and it come a plant that give us sweet and bitter, red and orange and the green fruit or different vegetables. Wouldn't you see a design in that?
Because of like a horticulture, like there's a bunch of plants in one space. I mean,
all what we call it, all the resources that enter this process are the same. It's a soil and water, and the composition of the seed chemically is very similar to each other. And then, but we get a totally variation of different things. Won't you see a design on that? I don't want you to believe from this that there is a creator, but won't you see a design? There is something here we can look at it and we believe there is a creation or there is a power behind that.
I might need to clarify. Are you saying of like a one physical space where there's different plants, or are you just talking about plants that are different all over the world? Because if you're talking about plants are just different all over the world, I would just say that's evolution. I wouldn't say that that's a creator.
No, and on the same soil, in the same field, I can plant.
Oh, okay. So different plants in the same field. Like if I literally found a field with different plants. Okay. I mean,
yes.
There was probably a farmer involved, I would say. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable conclusion. But not necessarily God, but somebody planting things, probably, sure.
No, I'm talking about this ecosystem that from the same soil, from the same water, and from the same sources, we get different fruits and different outcomes.
Oh, okay. All right. I see what you're saying now. No, because that's what nature. I mean, that's what happens in nature. I would say that just because that's just a brute fact of how plants work, is that they get stuff from soil. I don't know why why a creator has to be the reason for that.
No, I'm talking about a design. There is a design here.
Why?
The grape give us a sweet grape, and the green pepper come green pepper, and it's all the same resources: the water and the soil.
Okay, yeah. So things come from water and soil. I agree, but like, why does that necessitate that there has to be a creator? Why is that not just the result of like chemical reactions?
Well, if we talk about chemical reaction, then this will. I'm not expertise in the evolution or to talk, but I know from my work and my study that any organic material, and from our life, any organic material, if it sits for a long time, it decays. It did not go. It did not develop. It decay.
Yes, so living things decay.
All the biosystem we live.
Yes.
Any biosystem, any organic material stayed in for a very long time, for 1,000 years or for 1,000,000 of years. It does not come to be something else. It decays to the carbon and to the hydrogen, to the CHO.
So, but yes, things. Yes, that it becomes part of the environment after living beings die and go back to the ecosystem. But like that's what people who talk about evolution and who talk about the origins of life on Earth, they know that we didn't come from already living things. We would have to come from non-living things arranged in such a way that it would become what we would recognize as living. Where that line is exactly drawn and how exactly that process happened is still quite a mystery. There's still a lot of things that we don't know. There's a lot of people who are confident about certain ideas, but I'm not going to be the one up here saying that I know exactly how life on Earth originated. But the observation that things decay and that things all come from soil, that's not convincing me of a creator. That's not nearly enough.
Okay, that's fair. You know, but I'm still searching. I know I didn't have a good definition about what a designer is,
that's
and
okay.
I am trying to come up with a definition, because the definition will put us on the road of a serious understanding of what a design and what is not design.
Yeah, I would agree. I agree. It's important.
That's the main thing. I don't wanna take more time from you, and I appreciate you took my call, and you did a very good conversation with me. You know, I really appreciate your attitude. I couldn't make this conversation with Matt Delhanty. You know,
maybe not.
He shot me. Yes, on the HS experience. Because he mentioned a verse in the Quran, and I tried to explain it to him. And although my explanation will come up with his explanation, but he assumed like I was going to say something different, and he said, "Well, all the Muslims do that." So I really appreciate your attitude, and I want to add one thing that I'm a Muslim. I believe in Islam, and why I am interested in your movement and in you people, and I have a lot of respect for you as a group and all the atheists, because the humane ideas of tolerance that it's come with your being an atheist. I might agree with you. I disagree with you for you being atheist. But all the social ideas that you guys carry, I agree with, and I think it is, and the scientific way of thinking, even if we disagree with it, but it is bring something good, and I wish everybody think this way, even if I disagree with them, even if he believe in something different than what I believe. So thank you.
Okay, well, that's very nice of you to say, Ahmad. Thank you for calling in, and thank you for saying all that. That's very nice. That's not something that we typically get on shows like this. And obviously Matt and I are very different in how we talk to people. And Gayle is also very different from Matt. And that's just how it is sometimes. But as far as origins of life, probably didn't come from the soil. What most scientists say about the origins of life, it probably came from the ocean, is what is most popularly theorized. So I would research looking into what people have to say about that, how origins of life occurred on Earth. It's very fascinating, and it's definitely not something I'm an expert on. So I could tell you what some people have said, but only what I've read about. You know, it's not my field of study. But hey, thanks for calling in. That's very nice. What a nice call, right, Gayle?
Right. Ahmad, good on you. Good on you. Keep thinking, keep reading, keep researching. You are doing the thing that very few religious people will do, which is questioning and trying to find answers. And I get the impression that you are trying to do it in as honest manner as possible. And I do appreciate that. Keep thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. We're at an awkward point of the show where we've got like 8 more minutes here before 2:30, and I want to say we can have time for more, but I'm not sure. We're kind of close to the end here. We'll try to get one call really quickly. I mean really quickly in the next few minutes here. Okay, so I want to talk to Terry from Montreal. Terry, we're at the end of the show. You have like 1 minute, maybe 2. Go ahead. What's up?
All right, perfect. So perfect. I'm gonna demonstrate Jesus is God with 2 propositions. And I'll see how you guys engage with that. First of all, Jesus is the author, or the God of the Hebrews is the author of the 7-day cycle. And second proposition, the God of the Hebrews predicted the universal application of the 7-day cycle as a demonstration or a sign of his power over all nations. So how would you engage with that?
Okay, first of all, God, first proposition, Jesus made the 7-day cycle.
He's the author of the 7-day cycle. He makes exclusive claims to the 7-day cycle, or the God of the Hebrews makes exclusive claim to the 7-day cycle. Therefore, there's no historical.
Okay, so we use a 7-day cycle because like we pick that, like, yeah, like they use a 7-day cycle, but like how does that make Jesus God? Because like the only reason we use the 7-day cycle is because we all agree to use that cycle. But there are other calendars on Earth that of countries and places that don't use that same kind of system. There are moon calendars out there, and there are calendars, based on other kinds of cycles. So that's just a cultural arbitrary distinction. It's not like a hard brute fact of the universe that there are 7 days on Earth. That's a cultural construct created by people. So I have no idea how that relates to Jesus being God.
How about I help you out? I'm going to, first of all, respond to in 3 points. First of all, every nation kept a different cycle than a 7-day cycle. And it had something to do with religious significance or observances. That's first of all. Second of all, Jesus predicted, that's where the power comes in. My second proposition, that he would submit all nations who kept a different cycle for the veneration of their gods to the 7-day cycle as a sign of his authority over all nations. So I'm right. I agree with you that it has nothing to do with nature. It has to do with the commandment of Jesus Christ in the very book of Genesis, where he created in 6 days, and he Sabbathed on the 7th day. And he said he would use the Sabbath as a sign of his authority to demonstrate that he is sovereign over all nations. So how would you engage with that? Because again, all nations did not decide to keep the 7-day cycle, because all nations kept a different cycle for the veneration of their gods. Romans kept the 8-day cycle for the veneration of the gods. Egypt kept a 10-day cycle for the veneration of the gods. Babylon, the lunar cycle, etc., etc.
Okay, so you are kind of demonstrating my point. Other cultures have used different systems. That was my point. So the fact that most people on Earth use a 7-day cycle, why does that mean that Jesus is God? I'm failing to see the connect there, because God said that we were going to use a 7-day cycle, and now most people on Earth use it. Is that your point? I'm confused.
Okay, first of all, just to finalize, first of all, the fact that every nation kept a different cycle than the 7-day cycle helps my case, doesn't help yours. Why? Because God predicted 3,000 years ago.
It definitely does not, because if all of humanity came from two people, it doesn't make sense that people would switch to other systems just because. And this is a weird argument. I don't understand. So other people use different calendars, and you're saying that's evidence for God because the Hebrews kept using the 7-day. All that means is the Hebrews kept using the 7-day calendar. It doesn't mean that Jesus is God.
No.
What are you saying right now?
Again, I'm trying to keep it as simple without putting too much layers onto it, because you said why were every nation keeping a different cycle? That's established in Deuteronomy 32 verse 8, where God left the different nations with their God.
No,
so they came with their own religious.
I have to interrupt you, because that is your account. That is a religious account of world events. That is not what anthropologists find to be the result. Human beings, according to anthropologists, have been around for several million years. And in that amount of time, Homo sapiens, as well as probably other Homo species, have used different systems of keeping track of time. The fact that the Bible says other people use different ones to worship their gods, that is a religious narrative, and not necessarily true to what's demonstrated by scientific facts.
No,
so
but
that's my
here's the problem: is historical accounts supports the Bible. You came with a whole anthropology.
Disagree with that too. I think there's a lot of stuff that doesn't match up with the history of the Bible.
No. History. Let's keep it focused on the 7-day cycle and the other religious cycles. The history supports our position that every cycle had to do with the veneration of their gods.
I don't think that's true.
The Christian narrative.
I don't know if that's true. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I find that very hard to believe.
Give me one example.
I'm not an expert on world ideas of 7-day cycles, Terry. I'm sorry. I can't bring that to you right now. But I don't think I agree with you that most calendar systems on Earth probably are because of religious significance. Like, I think that's definitely true. But like, what does that have to do with Jesus being God, Terry? I'm still not getting the connection here. Just because the Bible says, yeah, other people do it because I'm losing my thoughts here. Gayle, do you have anything to add? I'm losing it.
Not my field.
My second proposition is something that you never addressed.
No, because I was too busy addressing the first one. I didn't have time. It's been like 2 minutes, Terry. Okay, I can address your second one. Can you remind me what it is? And then we got to wrap this up.
Well, the second one is the most important one. It says that he predicted the universal application of the 70 cycle as a sign of his authority over all nations. So he predicted it, and he said every nation will keep a 70 cycle. That is the power.
I'm not familiar with the verse that says that there's a prediction that every nation on earth would use a 7-day cycle. That would be interesting. But Terry, that's not even true. That's not even true. There are cultures on earth that still don't use a 7-day cycle. So that kind of defeats your point.
I'm talking about civic calendar.
Yes.
Calendar, every nation. Give me one nation.
Yeah.
Keep a 70.
How about unlocated tribes in the Amazon? Do they use a 7-day calendar, Terry?
Nations, civic calendar. Come on, guy.
So they're not they don't count as nations because why?
They're under a nation. Give me the
remote. Wait, which nation are remote tribes of the Amazon under? Please, I'd love to know.
Give me the name of the tribe and I tell you what nation they're under. Google search it.
No, just because they're geographically located within the borders of a country does not mean they're under the same jurisdiction as a nation. If you look at Native American tribes or Native peoples within the United States, they literally have different jurisdictions with how to treat those tribal communities in the country. There are excuse me, Terry, there are tribal nations that do not consider themselves part of the U.S., although, under jurisdictions they may vary. So this whole point of nations, this is semantics. Okay, we're getting into semantics here. My point is that there are groups of people on Earth that do not use the 7-day calendar cycle. And that is just a fact.
I need to know the name of the nation, please. Give me the name of the nation that doesn't keep a 7-day cycle. I need it.
Why? So you think if we found undiscovered, if we talk to people who haven't made contact, if we talk to the Sentinels, okay, if we went to the Sentinel Island and they're going to use a 7-day calendar system, if we talk to them, you think that's true?
I said nations. I'm still waiting for the nation that doesn't keep a 7-day cycle.
You just disagree with my definition of what a nation is. That's what this conversation is. I didn't even hear your question. I didn't hear your question.
I said, give me the name of the nation. You said
the Sentinelese people. There's a people group.
Sentinelese, Indonesia. That's in Indonesia. That's a nation. Why are you telling me?
Okay, I've already explained to you why that point doesn't matter. So this conversation is over. Thank you for playing. Have a nice day. The 7-day calendar is not evidence for Jesus being God, and I don't see how his argument demonstrated that in any way. The fact that the Bible says and I don't even know where it says that. If it does say that, I'd be curious to know that every nation on earth would use a 7-day calendar is not evidence of Jesus being God. I don't know what to tell you. It just does nothing to do with it. That's like saying the fact that I'm wearing a white shirt and there's a book that said I was going to wear a white shirt today means that I'm God. That doesn't mean anything. It's just a book. It says something. So I don't know. Gayle, did you have any other thoughts?
I haven't heard that theory, the 7-day week theory that proves God's existence or Jesus is Lord or whatever it was he said it proved. I hadn't heard that before. It sounds like there's a verse in Deuteronomy, something, 7-day week, something. It's a stretch.
It's a stretch. And if that's what's keeping you to God's divinity, I don't know. I feel like there's not a lot going on there in terms of evidence. I feel like you have better lay to that claim using other methods. But anyway, that's about all the time we got for this show. Gayle, thank you so much for being on today.
It's been a joy. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
I've been loving watching your reactions as I'm talking to people on this show. And Gayle, you're always a pleasure to talk to. And where can people find you at?
Recoveringfromreligion.org is where you can find our chat. Our telephone line is 84. I doubt it. We'd love to talk to you. And don't forget fall excursions, September 17, 18, 19. All the details are at the website.
Awesome. Yes, please go check out Recovering from Religion. They are an awesome organization. And like I said, Gayle is just a wonderful human being. I'm so glad that we got to do another show together. So thank you so much for joining me today. I do appreciate it. I hope we get to do more shows like this together sometime in the future too.
Thank you, Dan, as do I.
Yes. So I want to reiterate some other ways you can support this show. Okay, so you can become a member by clicking the join button in the video below if you're watching this on YouTube. And you can also support us on Patreon. It's patreon.com/talkheathen to me. I want to give a special thanks to everybody who donates on that Patreon. You guys rock. And again, we have a channel that houses all the shows of the ACA in audio podcast form. That's going to be tiny.cc at AEN podcasts. So check that out if you haven't already. You can also become a part of the Talk Heathen community in our fan run Facebook page. And that's at facebook.com/groups/talkheathenfg. And you should also check out the after show. Usually we do an after show. We're not doing it today, but in the future, you should watch us live so you can go into that after show on the Atheist Community Discord, which is a fan-run Discord server at tiny.cc/ACA Discord. And you should also make sure to check out the newest version of the ACA show, The Nonprofits, which is going to air at 3 p.m. Central Time today. So go check that out. If you weren't planning on it, you should plan on it. It's really cool. And I need to give a special thanks to the wonderful, amazing, fantastic, spectacular crew that helps make this show happen every single week. Look at that crew, Kim, and the cat. Always have several cats and kitties helping us out. John is making a crazy face there with that ukulele. I am worried about his well-being, but I'm sure he's fine. Anyway, and I want to give, again, a special thanks to all the viewers of this show. Thank you to everybody who watches. We want to give you guys some love rings now. Let's see. I'm going to try to do this here. Spread out my hands. Let's see if we get the love rings going. There they go. You kind of have to do this little jellyfish motion, and it just casts a spell. I don't know how it happens. It's just magic, I guess. And whether or not you believe, if you are an essential worker, we want to thank you. And if you don't believe, this is your community. And if you do believe, we don't hate you. We're just not convinced. I'm Objectively Dan. Thanks for watching Talk Heathen. We'll see you next time.
It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.